Happy Saturday night to everybody. Welcome into the July 13th, 2024 edition of the Founders Pod. I am one of the co-founders. I'm DM3. Alongside me is the other co-founder, my best friend, my brother from another mother, A-Rich, Akeem Richens. A-Rich, how you feeling on this hot Saturday evening, summer evening, middle of July? How you feeling, man?
Uh, DM3, I'm feeling great, man. I'm feeling great. It's the dog days of summer, right? It's never, days off over here at BIB. Shout out to everybody in the crew for their excellent work and hard work throughout the process of the dog days of summer. But now we're getting into that feel and that vibe of football.
You smell training
Football is
camp?
in the air. I smell
No?
training camp. It's
Smell
it's
it?
it's approaching. It's approaching, and it feels great to finally talk about and dive into specifics. And it's going to be starting with training camp.
Yeah, I'm excited because there seems to be this year a lot more of the what ifs and the unknowns that we've had. We haven't really had a chance to talk about the last 4 years because the roster, the way that it was flipped over and turned upside down this offseason makes it really interesting for all the training camp battles and stuff like that, which we will get into because we're going to break down everything going on at training camp. So we have a pretty packed show. If you guys saw the name of the show, it's the top 10 Bills heading into the 2024 season, not named Josh Allen. So me and Akeem, we thought about this, and shout out to Buffalo Plus because they did a top 15. I think how me and Akeem are going to do it, we're going to do the top 10 that need to have an impact on the roster. Is that safe to say, Akeem, something like that need to step up in 2024 to make an impact? Is that safe to say?
Yeah, I think that's a good sounding board to go off of, and we'll see if and how our list differentiates from there. But I think that's a good sounding board.
And we do have some other small topics that kind of came up throughout the last week. We had Von Miller doing an interview with Sports Illustrated. We haven't had a chance to touch on that. I know the article's been out probably 10 to 12 days now, but some really good talking points there about what he thought about him playing last season. Keon Coleman's making the podcasting rounds, so I want to talk a little bit about what he had to say about Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs being compared to them. And then I want to talk about Josh Allen, saying that he would retire if it meant that the Buffalo Bills would win a Super Bowl. So I think those are all three really good topics we won't spend a ton of time on because I want to spend the bulk of our show talking about our top 10 lists and what they mean to us. And I'm really hoping that this is the time where me and Akeem look at things through a different lens because typically we agree on 99% of everything we discuss. So I think that's a really good time for us to put our 2 cents in on any specific players and stuff like that. So first and foremost, Von Miller was interviewed in Sports Illustrated, and most of the interview was about eyeglasses. It was about fashion. It was about stuff he does in the off season, a lot of stuff that wasn't related to football. But then the journalist asked him the very last question, what is your biggest goal heading into the 2024 season? And I have it verbatim. I have the transcripts from Sports Illustrated. So I'm going to put it up here and read it for you guys. If you haven't seen this already, and I want to get Akeem's initial reactions. Once I get through, there's 3 slides. So just kind of bear with me. I'm going to go through it. I'll put it up on the screen so you guys can read along with me. So Vaughn says, my biggest individual goal is getting back to playing my style of football. It's crazy how you get injured, you come back, and you really shouldn't have been playing. And people judge you by the product on the field. I could have easily sat out all of last season, but I couldn't do that to my teammates. I felt like being later in my career, I didn't want to sacrifice any of my years, but at the same time, I shouldn't have been there. All right, A-Rich, let's break this down slide by slide. So we know that Von Miller is a media darling, right? We know that he will get out in front of the microphone and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. What's your initial reaction to that response, talking about how he says that he shouldn't have even played last year? What's your initial thoughts?
Based on his play last year, based on his production and the lack thereof, and based on how he looked last year, he is absolutely right. Von Miller should not have played last year if he was going to play like he played, if he was going to look how he looked. But at the same time, you present yourself in certain ways, and he presents himself as a great talker and a great speaker amongst the people. He had a podcast going. He expressed his desires to be an NFL GM one day. He signed a 6-year, $120 million contract, and he said that he wanted to play out initially when he signed the contract, that he wanted to play out the duration of that contract. And he is looked as that closer for the Buffalo Bills. He is looked at as that finisher for the Buffalo Bills. So when you are looked at as such, when you have a Hall of Fame resume and you won 2 different Super Bowls with 2 different teams and you're trying to make it a third, you are looked at as a guy we expect to get out there and play. We expect to get out there and produce and to be held accountable as such. So when we hear now that you shouldn't have played, it's kind of the obvious. we saw
Right.
we saw that shit, right?
I,
So it's more about, that's water under the bridge. We're not going to forget about it, but now it's about, what can you do for me now? What can you provide? What can you produce this year? I love the fact you took a $17.5 million base salary to 8.5 mil base salary. That was uh, great of you and noble of you, so we can get and acquire players to get better. I like the GM side. Now we need the player side to step up and be productive this season.
yeah, the only issue I had with it, like I agree with everything you said, because we all saw, like I said, the eye test. We all saw that he wasn't playing up to the caliber of Von Miller, of his past. But we also, I think, all knew that maybe he shouldn't have been out there. Maybe he shouldn't have been playing. And then there was a time when Sean McDermott actually, he was inactive for game day, and they sat him down, and they were going through, okay, the rotation. He's not getting meaningful snaps. He's not being effective. He doesn't help us in the run. He's not getting to the quarterback. I will say, you saw in the Chiefs game that there was some really good signs that he was getting back to form. There was some nice plays he made. He didn't get to the quarterback, but he made some nice pressures. He made a couple stops out in the flat where a couple run stops. So I think the only concern I have is he was in front of the camera whenever he could at the end of the 22 season when he had the injury, saying he was coming back in this amount of time and he can't wait to get out there and he's going to be ready for week 1. Well, if you're telling us all that, like, we're not pressuring you to play. Obviously, the team's not pressuring you to play. I don't think Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott were pressuring this guy to play. He was putting that all on himself. So to come back now and say all of this, it's kind of it's a little weird. I don't know where the mindset is at. But the rest of the slides, I'll go through the rest of the interview. I feel like people are judging me on that, so it's making me a little bit angry. To be honest, it's making me tap into Vaughn that I haven't been in a while. I just want to get back to playing my style of football, get back to talking, making sacks, dancing, and making plays for my teammates. That's been my mindset this offseason. And then he goes into saying the biggest team goal is bringing the first Super Bowl to Buffalo. Everyone feels like they deserve it, and they work hard, but Buffalo Bills fans in Western New York, they deserve it, man. I think he was just kind of throwing things out there, talking about Josh Allen is an amazing player. He's one of the most amazing people that I've ever been around. These guys deserve it. So I don't know. I really feel good about what I've seen and heard about Vaughn. He's putting a lot of tape out there about how he's working out, and we didn't see that obviously last year. He's not wearing any restrictive devices. He's not wearing a brace. He's not doing anything that isn't just normal training camp stuff for defensive ends. So to wrap a bow on the Vaughn thing, how do you feel, and we don't have to go too deep into this, but how do you feel that Vaughn's going to contribute this year? Is he just going to be a quarterback merchant? Is he going to be a guy who's a third down only guy? What's your thoughts there?
Well, I don't want to give away my list, right? In terms of who I feel it needs to step up or has to make the most impact. But I'm expecting Von Miller of 2022 when he first arrived for the Buffalo Bills, and he started off with that 8 or 8.5 sacks in the first 9 games. Now, it doesn't have to be that per se, right? But I want to see him out there making plays. I want to see him out there being an impact in making plays. I want to see him bend off that edge. I want to see him pressure the quarterback. I want to see him make tackles in the backfield and make tackles on running backs. I want to see the Von Miller that we thought we would get. And it's unfortunate that he got injured and injuries happen, and we gave him his time now. Even though he understood, I think he got a piece of the humble pie with how he was in terms of his production and his perception now, compared to how he was perceived when he came to the Buffalo Bills. But this is the year where the expectations for Von Miller is back to normal. The train is back on the tracks, and it's time to get rolling.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I do feel like if there's less expectations on Vaughn, maybe mentally that will help him just get back to what he does best, and that's affect the quarterback. Because you saw it last year, even with Leonard Floyd, you saw down the stretch, that was what we missed the most, especially against the Chiefs. And even going down the stretch, yes, the Bills were winning games, but I think we didn't have guys because let's call a spade here. Leonard Floyd is not a spring chicken anymore. And Ed Oliver was playing, we've talked about this before, was playing so many more snaps than he was in his previous seasons that the Bills need that closer. They need guys like AJ Epinesa. They need guys like Gregory Rousseau to get to the quarterback. So I think with lower expectations, I think anything we get from Vaughn is going to be just a plus. I think that's going to be something that's just going to help this team. I want him there in the locker room being motivated for the younger guys. That's what I want to see. I want to see him be that mouthpiece that can be in the film room and, in practice and stuff like that throughout the week, just getting those guys going. So before we move on, let's handle some business. As you guys all know, Monster Energy is the official energy partner of Built in Buffalo. It's a really big deal. Shout out to my guy Lance. He did a lot of legwork on that. It's a really big deal. They're going to sponsor us all season long. We're going to have tailgates at all the home games. So come out and see us. They're going to be sponsoring all that stuff. If you're watching us on YouTube, please subscribe. We want to get this channel to grow bigger and even better than we have in the past. Smash that like. There's only a few likes in here. We have over 500 people watching between all the platforms. So if you can smash that like, it helps the YouTube algorithm push us towards the content that people want to see. And let's help this channel grow so we can get more and more engagement. All right, A-Rich, let's talk about Keon Coleman, who is a walking soundbite. I think he's becoming one of the most favorite Buffalo Bills currently on the roster because I think he's just a positive, upbeat guy. And honestly, I think a lot of us want to see this guy succeed, not just because we need production from the wide receiver position, but I think he's just a good dude. Like, I feel like he says what he means and he means what he says. And I think he's a really good addition to this team in the city and what he's going to bring to the locker room. So he was making the podcast rounds like these guys all do in the offseason. And he talked about how he didn't want to be compared to Stephon Diggs. He didn't want to be compared to Gabe Davis. He says, I just want to be me. I just want to be Keon Coleman. How do you feel about that? Like, he obviously paid attention to who was on the roster. We all know the big impact that Stephon Diggs made on this roster, and all the target share between him and Gabe Davis is now going to have to go elsewhere. He wasn't a first-round pick, but essentially the 33rd pick. I mean, the Bills probably could have taken him at the end of the first round, but they decided to get some more draft capital by moving back a few spots. What's your thoughts about his take on not wanting to be anybody but himself?
I think that's how he should feel in terms of his play and his ability and him being the person that he is, right? He wasn't on the team last year. He is a rookie. He is not obviously Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis. So he doesn't want to be looked at as having to fill their shoes. He's not filling their shoes. He's filling his shoes as an NFL player. And he's going to provide to the Buffalo Bills what he can do in his shoes. And he is a different player, a different dimension than a Gabe Davis and a Stephon Diggs was at receiver. I think despite the speed and being a 4'6", 40 guy, he plays a quicker style. He plays a more physical brand of football where I think will play to his advantage, whereas Stephon Diggs was not that type of guy. He didn't win in that way. Gabe Davis, he was a bigger body, being 6'3", 215 pounds or so, but he didn't win in a way of contested catches and playing downright bully ball. And I think Keon Coleman can add that dimension to the Buffalo receiving room. And I think he adds that dimension as one of his receiver traits as an individual, which would help the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen, because he ultimately didn't have a specimen that can do the things like Keon Coleman can do. So ultimately, I think he should feel exactly how he feels in being himself as opposed to filling other players' shoes.
During the whole draft process, there was a lot of buzz about Keon Coleman, and it was surprising that he wasn't put up there with the upper echelon of guys that were taken high first rounds, the Marvin Harrison Juniors and stuff like that. But if you watch practice, and yes, I understand, before everybody gets all up in arms, I understand it's practice. They're practicing against air, but watch how he catches the ball. It's such a breath of fresh air. If you're talking about, I don't know how many years we talked about how Gabe Davis caught the ball. But if you watch Keon Coleman catch the ball, it's so fluid. It's so natural. The way he makes plays and his agility, I really feel like he's going to be a huge red zone target for this team. I feel like we may not see a ton of Keon Coleman between the 20s, but I feel like Josh is going to call his number once they get inside the red zone. And I feel like the way this offense has been constructed with, it's going to be pick your poison with the wide receivers, however Joe Brady wants to call the offense, I think it's going to be scheme based. But I think when you get in the red zone, you have Keon Coleman, and I really feel like we're going to have a really nice year from Dawson Knox again. He's healthy. Those two guys in the red zone, big bodies that can go get the ball and can't be out physical. I think it's going to be really fun to watch. And I think everybody's rooting for the guy because I think he's very humble. I think he knows, what's at stake here. And it's going to be just nice to see a young guy come in and step into that role and fill those shoes. If we want to compare him or not, I mean, he's going to constantly be compared to guys that were here before. So, with that being said, on Keon Coleman, let's talk about Josh Allen, because I think we can always talk about Josh Allen. So if you guys haven't seen the podcast Josh Allen was on, I'm going to show a clip right now. It's about 40 seconds, so just bear with it. Josh Allen talking about he's willing to retire if it means Buffalo can win a Super Bowl.
Josh, you very much want to win a Super Bowl with the Bills. Bring the Bills a Super Bowl would be incredible. Have you thought, this is a new move, have you thought about retiring and then the Bills will win a Super Bowl? Because that's kind of a thing that's going around. If you retire, the team you were last on wins.
Sometimes you got to make a sacrifice.
Yeah.
Oh, you can answer, but yeah.
If that's what it took, I would do it.
Oh, wow. That's huge for the Bills.
If I could, can I?
Yeah, guarantee it. Because that's what Blake did. He guaranteed it.
Yeah, I would do it.
I think you actually mean that, though, when you say that if it was guaranteed, you would retire.
Yeah, I would.
To bring the Bills to Super Bowl.
Yeah. That's
I feel like I would have a part.
Yeah, you'd
whether I played or not.
Right.
That was on part of my take. What's your initial reaction to that? Because would you trade a Super Bowl to not have Josh Allen anymore after that?
Yes. I would. I love Josh Allen. I obviously, I'm damn near in love with the guy, right? He's the franchise quarterback of our team. He is, top 2 quarterbacks in this National Football League. But this is over 30-year investment with an organization in the Buffalo Bills. And I've just recently approached another decade in age. And I want to see one personally before I check out of here. So if that's what it takes, as much as I love Josh Allen, if I can watch the Bills hoist the Lombardi Trophy, and we could go to a Buffalo Bills parade, and everybody, entire BIB crew can be there, and we could celebrate that moment together, bro. I'm golden. I'm golden. So, as much as I love Josh, yes, I would. I want that Super Bowl.
I mean, it's kind of a loaded question because does that mean he doesn't get one unless he retires? You know what I'm saying? Like,
I'm taking it as he got one for us, and now he wants to ride off into the sunset.
Yeah, because I mean, what if it's this year though, and it's prime Josh Allen that we don't have anymore? See, that's how the question kind of threw me off because does it mean that we can't get one ever again, or he's done for good, or like there was a lot of stuff that I wanted to ask, like, okay, so is it him playing this year and they get it, or is it he retires and that's the guarantee that if he retires, we're giving the Buffalo Bills the Super Bowl? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like it's hard. It's hard either way because I think, like you said, not being able to watch him play anymore is gonna at some point that's gonna happen, right? I mean, that's a given. But
of course,
if it's at the cost of a Super Bowl, I think I'm with you, man. Like I mean, this franchise, and I've been a fan longer than you just because I'm older. But
yeah. We're no spring chickens here, Dave.
What's that?
We're no spring chickens here.
Yeah,
I think we got to take that Super Bowl.
All right, I agree with you. All right, so I'm nervous about our list, man.
I'm excited. I'm excited about it.
Are you?
Yeah, I'm intrigued to see how we differentiate. I'm hoping we differentiate here. Get out of my head, DM3.
I know.
Get out of my head.
I know. How many times do we say that? Like, there's so many ways I looked at this because I think it's super interesting. Because you can look at it. Okay, so it's a top 10. Does it mean the best players on the team not named Josh Allen? Does it mean the guys that need to have the most impact this season? So the way I looked at it is guys that I think we need to rely on to have a good season for this team to be successful. So I guess you could say they need to step up. Does that make sense? Like,
I like it. I like that.
However kind of verbiage you want to use for it.
Right.
So, all right, we'll start at 10 and we'll kind of go back and forth with who goes with their number first. And then we have to figure out if my guy or your guy is the same number or it's not. Should we relinquish if it's on the list or not? If it's on our list, lower. So say, for instance, and this person's not on my list, Mitchell Trubisky. If you don't have him on your list or you have him lower, should you tell me you have him lower, or you're just gonna say, that's interesting, and we're just gonna kind of move on? What do you think?
That's a tough one. I think it's debatable. If you want to include it, if you want to say, you know what, I have him on my list, but he's higher or lower, then I think let's leave it up to us.
Let's do that. All right. So you want to go first, or you want me to go first with number 10?
I think I will kick this off at number 10.
Okay.
Number 10. So at number 10, and this is our top 10. Obviously, there are other important players as well, and obviously, our list is going to be debatable. It's going to differentiate from Dave's list, and Sophie and Joey Hatch lists might be different in the comment section, right? But at number 10, in terms of who I need to see make impact for the Buffalo Bills, or must make that important impact or play that crucial role for the Bills to have success, is Tyler Bass. I have Tyler Bass at number 10.
He's on my list, so you know.
Okay, that's good. Interesting, because I would not put him ahead of a position player, but he plays an important role when he's out there. We've experienced wide right. We experienced heartbreaking losses. We experienced trials and tribulations with Tyler Bass just last season. He missed 2 field goals against Philadelphia Eagles when we watched Jake Elliott in unseen conditions make that 59-yard field goal. He missed the 44-yard field goal last year. Tyler Bass is the 6th highest paid field goal kicker in the NFL. And he is in the bottom half of the league in field goal percentage at 82 at about 82% clip. So that is unacceptable, and we're going to have to make important field goals in crucial moments to beat these big time teams. It may take that against the Kansas City Chiefs, the Baltimore Ravens, or in their Super Bowl. And I do not want to relive a wide right scenario. So Tyler Bass, for his foreseeable future, has to make an impact in 2024 for the Buffalo Bills and have a successful season. I have him at number 10.
I agree. He's on my list, and I'll dive into him and my thoughts on it when we get to there. So
When we
my
get there.
number 10 is Keon Coleman.
Really?
Yep.
Okay.
I want to see what this kid got.
Mm.
And I think it's, like I said earlier, I think the Bills have schemes that they're going to use his, like you said, they're going to use his traits. Everyone wants to talk about Dalton Kincaid, and everybody wants to talk about Khalil Shakir and all this. But I really think that, look, he's essentially was your first-round draft pick. Same expectations we gave A.J. Epinesa back in 2020. You didn't have a first-round pick. He was your pick. And I think that we need to see something from him, and I don't think it needs to be right away. But this season, I think that he is crucial. He's a skill set of the guys that you've been trying to bring in, but he's a better version of it. The MVS and the Chase Claypools. He's that big body, physical guy that they went up, and it's time to have these draft picks wherever they're picked in the day one or day two. They need to start cashing in on these picks. Because you could talk about Kyer Elam all you want. He's former first-round pick who we're still waiting on to figure out if he's going to finally develop. I think the hype around Keon Coleman is real, and I absolutely think that it's crucial that he plays a big part in this offense. I'm not saying it's the end-all, be-all if he's not out there, getting 5 to 10 targets a week, but I think we need to start funneling the ball to him at some point this season, and he makes an impact on this team.
And I like the pick. I like the pick because I think Keon Coleman can actually, he has the possibility of exceeding expectations in his first year. Why I say that? Because Joe Brady's offense, he liked to kind of pepper guys the ball. He wants to get the ball out in space. He wants to get the ball out in short intermediate passes. And that's where I think Keon Coleman can stay consistent throughout the course of the game. If you want to compare him to the likes of a Gabe Davis, where he couldn't stay consistent, he disappeared at certain moments of the game. And that's because Gabe Davis have strengths and weaknesses to his game that didn't compare with the Joe Brady offense, and he had to be able to run those short and intermediate routes. And I think Keon Coleman excels in doing so. And because he excels in doing so, he has the makings of exceeding expectations. But I disagree because he is a second round pick. Because the Buffalo Bills, how I look at it as they was at 27. They traded back not once, but twice, right? So I'm not saying he's not important, but it's like I think there's possibly other important players at the receiver position more important this year than Keon Coleman. I'll put it like that.
I like it. I can see your point on that. I can see your point. I just think with the heavy focus that's going to be on Kincaid and Shakir, I think it's time. I think that spells like Keon Coleman's just going to come out of nowhere, and he's going to surprise a lot of people. He's going to have that chip that we want. Have that chip on your shoulder and go out there and execute because he wasn't a first-round draft pick. I don't know. That's just me. I think the world of the guy, and I think he's gonna perform really well for the team, and I think it's going to be more and more as the season progresses. He's going to become a more intricate part of this offense and what Joe Brady does. So
now, right quick. I apologize, DM3. Right quick. Now, I had a honorable mention in this, right? And my honorable mention, right quick, was Curtis Samuel, right?
Okay.
Because and I had him as the honorable mention because number one, he's currently the highest paid receiver in the room for the Buffalo Bills now, right? Sure. He's getting paid $24 million with a census. I think he could get up to $30 million. And then he has success. He had his career year under Joe Brady's offense. So now he's the guy that have familiarity within the offense, and now he can kind of be that extra guy, that extra sounding bite for Joe Brady on the field because he's accustomed to the offense, whereas MVS and Keon Coleman being a rookie and other guys are not accustomed to the offense. So that's why I had Curtis Samuel as an honorable mention. But I like the Keon Coleman at 10.
Yeah, I think that you and me, I know we talked a lot about Curtis Samuel, a few months back, but I think I already know what I expect from Curtis Samuel. I think he's going to be that. You know what I'm saying? I think he's going to be that guy that's going to be reliable. He's going to get the intermediate stuff. He's probably going to do some of the, the gadget type stuff because of his speed. And he can do a little bit of everything. He gets separation. He gets the yak yard. So I think that's why I didn't go with him on the list because I think we know what to expect from him, and we should get it from him, right?
Right.
So
Right.
All right, moving on to number 9, Rasul Douglas.
Oh, 9.
Yep. You'll see why he's at 9. Now, I think he's a huge part of what this defense needs to do and what Sean McDermott wants to do. He's got to lock down the number 1 wide receivers, I feel like. We had arguments back and forth if Christian Benford's CB1, if Rasul Douglas is CB1. I'm looking at it as this is a contract year. He didn't sign an extension yet. And I feel like what we saw in the small sample size after the trade deadline last year, I feel like we need to expand on that. I feel like there was some times last year where he was making the splash plays, and that's nice, but I want to see it over the whole season. There's obviously some stuff out there saying that he just showed up to practice and McDermott just said, go do this, or this is where you need to be, or he relied heavily on Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer to make sure he was in positional, the right spots on the field. Not saying he's not an athlete, because he's one hell of a corner, as we saw a ton of the Green Bay Packers fans came out and said that they were pissed off that he got traded. So I don't know. I liked what we saw. I just want to see more of it throughout the entirety of the season. And we obviously saw how he was missed in the postseason, right? We didn't have him at 100%. So I think he's a huge part of what McDermott wants to do in the defense. And with him alongside Benford, those guys are going to be relied on so heavy because of the safety room that we have currently, I say currently, with the lack of experience in the safety room and in this defense. So I don't know. I think Rasul Douglas is probably going to have a really good season, and I think it's going to be paramount to this Bills defense performing well. And I think that him being out there, covering the number 1 receiver and making an impact is definitely important to this team long-term this season. So
I like it. I like the assessment. I definitely have Rasul Douglas on the list. He's a little bit higher, but I definitely have him on the list, and I have him on the list for those reasons. Being, I'll probably elaborate a little more when I get to him, but I like it. Obviously a little lower than me, but I like it. I like it at 9.
I struggled with. I put all my names on a list. I had 15 when I started, and then I went through and I was like, okay, this person should be here and this person. And then when I got to him, I'm like, all right, he could be a lot lower. But then there's other players. I'm like, man, this player really needs to perform. So that's why he was at 9. He could have gone lower on my list, but who's your number 9?
So my number 9 on the list of guys that have to make an impact to be successful for the Bills overall, I have Matt Milano at number 9.
At number 9?
I have Matt Milano at number 9.
Okay. All right. That's interesting. He's on my list.
Now, the reason why I have Matt Milano at 9, obviously, he's a great player. Sideline to sideline athlete. He's one of the best cover linebackers in football, and he plays with his hair on fire. He plays with the physicality, and you see it when he's on the field. It's out in display. But as great as he is, I think we have to temper those expectations a little bit because he's coming off a major injury. This is not like, he's not a human being or he's a robot and he could just come back and pick up where he left off. He suffered a major injury. He broke his legs. He broke his leg, and now he has to come back, rehab that leg, build back that trust and build that mental capacity that he can physically do the things he was accustomed to doing before the injury. And I think that that's going to be a hurdle that he has to get over. And I think as fans, we have to understand and realize that. So because of that, and the combination of the Buffalo Bills, where are they deepest at? What position are they deepest at? They're deepest at the linebacker position. They have Dorian Williams, who played well as a third-round pick. They picked up a fifth-round pick, Edifon Ulafashio. They got Morrow. They got Bill Inspector. They got Deion Jones. So they have a lot of guys that can come in and fill in and be that extra insurance policy if need be. So because of those things, I have Matt Milano at number 9. Still very important, but there's reasons behind his number.
I agree with everything you said. When we do our 53-man roster, like once we get heavy into training camp and we do it, I think everybody's doing it now, and it's like there's a lot to go into it. The linebacker room is going to be tough because the linebackers are going to be fighting against, extra DBs, or are we going to keep 7 receivers? Like, are we going to go with 11 offensive linemen? Like, there's a ton that is going to go into this linebacker room. And Brandon Beane, kudos to him, saw what happened and how depleted this room was going into the postseason last year and completely retooled. There's going to be guys like Deion Jones. He's one of the best coverage linebackers in the NFL. He might not make the roster because of how deep this team is. So, it's between him and Bernard, it's going to be really nice to see, hopefully, knock on wood, that they get to play the whole season. Because if you want to watch a highlight film on how linebacking should be done in the NFL, just go watch the Bills versus the Washington Commanders from last year. It was just a highlight film of Milano and Terrell Bernard just making play after play after play. I think they had 5 or 6 turnovers in that game. Crazy. So, all right. For those of you that are watching either live or if you're rewatching this, we want to see your list too. So put your top 10 in the comment section if you guys want. Also comment when, as we're going along, what you guys think. If you agree with our list, if you're watching it live or you're rewatching it. Also subscribe, smash the like, so that way we can get more and more engagement. All right. You're up for number 8.
So number 8 must make an impact. 8th most impactful. I have Matt Milano's running mate, Terrell Bernard.
Okay.
Now you listening to my list like, yo, our list really does differentiate, right? Now I have, the reason why I have Terrell Bernard at 8 is because obviously he showed that he was worth the price of commission in terms of being that 3rd round draft selection when people thought that he was a reach or he was selected too high. He was a player that came in and had over 100 tackles, 10 tackles for loss, 6.5 sacks, 3 forced fumbles. He was that playmaker all over the field for the Buffalo Bills, and he is that new Mike, and that he is the new style of linebacker I think teams would want now that the NFL is evolving to what it's becoming, and that's being a passing league, and that's being able to try to set up mismatch nightmares wherever it could be, whether that's playing outside receivers in the slot or tight ends in the slot or running backs out in the backfield playing receiver. I think you want linebackers now that that can cover all aspects of the game. You want him to be able to cover, and you want him to be able to be stout in the run game, be efficient enough to stay out there all 3 downs. And I think that is what Terrell Bernard is capable of. And I think that's what makes him important. I do believe, because of similar reasons with Matt Milano, being that the linebacking core is deep. And I think while they might not be as good, I think that a guy like Nicholas Morrow can come in and step in and make plays for a couple of games if need be, God forbid. So because of those reasons, I have him on the list, but I do think there are more important players above Terrell Bernard, but I do have him at number 8.
He's on my list, just FYI.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that Bean saw what happened with Milano? And there's always this, I don't know if it's a misconception about Matt Milano that he's injury prone. When the Bills gave him that big contract a couple years ago, people were saying we gave an injury prone linebacker all that money. And then saw what happened. Bernard was injured before last season. Bernard was injured, or I'm sorry, the 22 season. He was injured before the 23 season, and then he got injured during the season. Do you think that this depth is more than just depth? Do you think it's, hey, we probably are going to have to rely on these guys because of I think the style that Milano plays is kind of making it seem like he's injury prone because, like you said, he plays with his hair on fire and he's sideline to sideline. He's crazy. We've seen the hits on the quarterbacks. We've seen how he gets after it. Bernard is very similar. Do you think that's, and I know I'm going off on a tangent, but do you think this is the reason why he beefed up the linebacking room? Not that he wasn't going to try to figure that out anyways, but not only did he address it in free agency, but he went out and drafted it as well. And I'm like I said, it's going to be hard for this team to have to release some of these guys or stash them on the practice squad because I don't feel like they last long on the practice squad when they do cuts. So I don't know. Give me a quick synopsis of, how Bean constructed that room. And do you think it's because he's, just thinking that, well, there's a 50-50 shot that one of these guys is going to go down. It's happened, the past 2 years.
I think it's because a multitude of reasons, right? I think it's because of the direction the NFL has went. Now you want to be able to have these players to play all 3 downs, right? Because of the style of play the NFL has transitioned into. So now it's these linebackers are crucial components to the defense because they have to cover different layers and they still have to play the run, but not to the same capacity as 15 years ago, right? 15 years ago, a decade or 2 ago, we had 2 down linebackers, and those linebackers would come out the game, and then they would have a 3rd down package, right? So the linebackers, there was run stuffing linebackers and there was coverage linebackers, and I think they rotated depending on the down and distance. Where I don't think that's happening as much. I think the athletes are more superior than ever, and because of those things, you're going to be susceptible to injury. So why not beef up, like we say, that linebacker in room, right? Why not beef that up just in case Matt Milano goes down, just in case Terrell Bernard goes down? And why not also beef up the linebacker room to spell Teron Johnson a little bit? He's been suffering through concussions, and we've been talking about possibly playing more 3 linebackers and protecting ourselves, one, against the run better, being better against the run, and then protecting Teron Johnson a little more so he can be as efficient as ever when we need him most. So I think because of those multitude of reasons is why Brandon Beane ultimately beefed up that linebacking room.
I like it. I like it a lot. All right, so my number 8, Spencer Brown.
Wow.
We saw it last year. Got to see it again. I got to see it again. We talked about the 5 up front stayed together, played together all season. it's got to happen again. With all the moving parts, is Connor McGovern going to be center? What are they doing at left guard? Is there going to be competition? He's in a contract year. And I really liked the way that he performed last year. He didn't seem like a liability like he was in 22. And I feel like we need to see that again. We need to keep Josh upright. Josh Allen was the least sacked quarterback in the NFL last year. 24 times is all Josh was sacked. Now, he is probably one of the most athletic, top 3 athletic quarterbacks in the NFL as far as eluding pressure, playing off script, doing stuff like that. But all I want to see Spencer Brown do is displace people, push people down the field and maul people. And I want to see it on a consistent basis. And I think that pass protection, he's fine. I think run protection is where we need to see more from him. And I know that the way that Joe Brady wants to run this offense, they're gonna run more. It's inevitable. They're gonna have 12 personnel. They're gonna run more. They're gonna do a lot of stuff to extend drives, continue what they got going on with momentum and all that stuff, close out games, things like that. I need to see Spencer Brown. I had Dawkins on here too, but Dawkins got an honorable mention. I want to see the bookend tackles become the franchise bookend tackles, and Spencer Brown is a huge part of that. And I want to not ever have to worry if he pans out this year and they can sign him to a long-term deal. I don't want to have to worry about the bookends, and I think he's paramount for what the Bills want to do this year on offense.
I like that a lot. I like that assessment a lot. You've seen it once, you want to see it again. I like it. I like it.
All right.
Good take. Surprise, but I like it.
I told you I went back and forth on some of these guys, and I looked at it like we need Josh to be successful ultimately. Josh can't be on the list because it's players without that don't include Josh Allen. So how can we keep Josh healthy? We keep him upright. We need Spencer Brown and Deion Dawkins to do that. So, all right, you're number 7. Oh wait, no, is it my turn? It's my turn. Right?
I believe so. Yep.
Okay. So my number 7 is Terrell Bernard. Everything that you basically said, I say the exact same thing. We need to make sure that this guy stays healthy first and foremost, hopefully with his running mate, Matt Milano. And it's really funny how a lot of people said that Terrell Bernard was too small. Why would you have 2 Matt Milanos out there? We were used to watching, a big 6'5" Terrell Edmonds out there. Freakish length. Don't throw over the middle when Edmonds is there. Terrell Bernard had a better season, I think, last year than Terrell Edmonds had in his entire career, any specific season. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that because he made impactful plays, whereas Tremaine Edmonds did not.
Yeah, he wasn't just a tackle merchant that would just get assisted tackles. And not saying that, because I defended Terrell Edmonds for 4 years, and not saying that he didn't, bring a ton to the Bills defense that wasn't always talked about on the stat sheets and stuff like that. He meant a lot to this defense, but I think Terrell Bernard, the expectations that we had for him, he blew out of the water. And I think that I want to see it again. And I know he excelled even when Matt Milano wasn't there. When Matt Milano got injured in Jacksonville, after that, he still played at a high level. I want to see it again. I want to see what happened last year was not a fluke. You are the middle linebacker of the future for this team, and you're going to be that guy that's calling plays. We know about how smart and cerebral he is, and I just want to see more of it. And I think he's a huge part of what this defense does, because he's going to help the guys in the back. He's going to help Taron Johnson. And we can get into defensive line play, but that's another time. But I don't know. I think I want to see more of it. I want to make sure that what we saw last year is actually what we're going to get this year. I think it is, but I just want to see it again. And I think it's paramount for what McDermott wants to do on the defensive side of the ball. So
I like it. I agree 100%. Got to see it again, just like Spencer Brown.
Yep.
Just like Spencer Brown. So
all right, you're number 7. Who you got?
I like it a lot. My number 7, Rasul Douglas. Rasul Douglas is the quote unquote number CB1 or CB1A, if you want to go 1A, 1B with him and Christian Benford. He's the guy that's going to have to cover the Tyreek Hills of the world, St. Brown, Garrett Wilson. So I think it's going to be pivotal that he has success and he continues to have that success like he had last season when he came in and he was an instant impact player. He came in, he had a touchdown, he had fumble recoveries, he had 4 interceptions. He made impact plays, and that's ultimately what we're going to continuously need from this defense. Guys that's going to step up and not just make a play, but make impact plays. And I think this season is going to be a crucial one for Douglas and for the Buffalo Bills to have success for him to do so. Contract years, 29 years old, want to be 30 when the season starts. I believe he turned 30 in August. So this is also possibly his last opportunity for his most lucrative payday. So it's going to be a big year for Rasul Douglas and for the Buffalo Bills to have success depending on our cornerback one success. So I have Rasul Douglas at number 7.
Would you extend Rasul Douglas?
I
now,
would.
You just said this is going to be his age 30 season.
Yes, I would. I would wait out the year and see what happens. I would see I would take it from there. Right now, if you had to put a gun to my head right now and give me a yes or no, I probably wouldn't. I probably wouldn't resign him. I want to go younger.
With that being said, because you saw what we just went through with Poyer and Hyde, right? They played 32, 31, 32 age season. You don't think it would be beneficial maybe for a 2-year deal to bring him in as we still don't know what we got with Kyrie Elam, right? I know everybody's saying he's had a great spring and he had good training camp up to a couple weeks ago. He looked good, right? We still don't know. So that's Christian Benford. And talk about draft picks, talk about Hardy that we drafted, Jamarcus Ingram. You can talk about all those guys, but a surefire thing at corner that's going to be going up against number 1 wide receivers for the next 2 years could be Rasul Douglas. Do you think he, hitting his age 30 season, you think he's still got 2 more years of high-level cornerback play in him, or do you think that the team just would want to continue to get younger at that position?
Again, I would have to see how he plays this year to know, the high level of play he's capable of for the next 2. But right now, on face value, do I think he's possibly capable of 2 years of high level play? Yes, I think he is capable of that. But it takes 2 to dance. It takes 2 to tango, right? Does he want that 2-year deal with possibly an out and not the salary that he wants, but can get up there with incentives? Does he want that at the time of his career where he has the possible, again, last opportunity for a lucrative contract? So the 2 sides have to marry at the same time. So it's going to be interesting to see.
Gotcha. I agree with you. Mm-hmm. All right. So we're on to number 6.
Number 6. Yep.
Who you got?
Ed Oliver.
Okay,
Ed Oliver. Ed Oliver's my number 6 guy. I think he had a very good season last year. I believe 9.5 sacks. That contract that he signed looks very good right now when you compare it to the likes of Christian Wilkins and Leonard Williams and other guys that got lucrative contracts at the defensive tackle position. And I think he is the anchor. I think he is the core piece amongst the Buffalo Bills defensive front. And I think he has to continue to ascend as a player. Even though he had a good season, maybe even a career year last year, I think most people will agree. I think he tailed off towards the end of the season, and reason being could possibly be, his snap count, his snap percentage. He played over 72% of his snaps last year, and that was a season high compared to 60 snaps the year before, and playing in the mid 50s prior to that, the beginning of his career. So, if Ed Oliver can maintain a high level consistency throughout the course of the season, I think it will be very good for the Bills defense as a whole and the defensive front. So I have Ed Oliver at number 6.
He's on my list. So I'll reiterate everything probably you just said when I get to him. Number 6 for me is Tyler Bass.
Ooh, got him high on the list. I'm not mad. I'm not mad at it.
I mean, you brought up earlier the game against the Eagles, right? Where a kicker on an opposing team can make a 59-yard field goal in the wet, nasty, windy rain. Who's the kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs?
Harrison Buckman.
Does he ever miss a kick?
No.
No, he doesn't.
When look
he
like
comes
it.
into the game, if it's postseason, regular season, it's a field goal.
Now,
okay, I might be a little extreme when I say that, but Tyler Bass used to be automatic. It used to be when he'd come out, if it was within 51 to 50 yards, it was 3 points. Now I have no idea. It could be 38 yards. It could be 26. It could be 43. He needs to make kicks. And I put in our group chat early last season, our Built in Buffalo group chat, I said, Tyler Bass is suspect. And I don't know. I know they got this Jack Browner guy that they brought in who can do punting, kicking. He can do kickoffs. He can do all that stuff. He's the guy who replaced Matt Ariza at San Diego State. And apparently he looks really good in camp. So it's going to be interesting to see if Tyler Bass has a good spring, had a good summer, has a good preseason, and maybe they brought the competition in just to kind of say, look, nothing's guaranteed. And for the money, like you said, the money that he's making, you got to make kicks, man. Like you got to be automatic. We went out and got you for your big strong leg because it's Buffalo. It's cold. It's windy in November, December, and January. We need you for that. We need you to be accurate. So I think he's very important.
And he is.
To the production of this team.
And us as fans, we shouldn't have to, like you said earlier, mentally wonder and be mentally worried if you're going to make a 36-yard field goal attempt. When Harrison Buckner goes out there and attempts a 36, 38, 40, 43-yard field goal attempt, fans are not worried if he's going to make that field goal. When Justin Tucker is out there, fans are not worried if he's going to make this field goal. Tyler Bass went from one of the better field goal kickers in the NFL to the Corey Bojorquez at the field goal position, at the field goal picker position. So, it's definitely going to be a big year for Tyler Bass, for the Buffalo Bills' success, and for Tyler Bass' future.
I agree. Yeah, it's tough talking about a kicker, but when he got paid, right? It's the exact opposite kind of conversation you just mentioned about Ed Oliver, right? He got paid, and it seems like, I'm not saying that's the reason why, but his play has declined. You got to earn that contract. And I'm not throwing shade at Tyler Bass for the reason why the Bills lost against the Chiefs. I'm just saying, like, Harrison Butker in that game hit some pretty important kicks, and Tyler Bass didn't. So things like that where, again, you got a kicker that's automatic on a team that you still are trying to beat every single year. You got to have a kicker that's just as good, if not better. And that's very important to this team. All right. Number 5 for me is Ed Oliver. I second everything that you said about Ed Oliver earlier. We talked earlier in this offseason about his production declining towards the end of the season, but I do feel like he kind of got gassed towards the end of the season because there was many times that you and me were having conversations with other folks saying that Ed Oliver might be the team's defensive MVP, if not the MVP, when the team was going through that lull in the middle of the season. Because Ed Oliver was still making plays. He was doing his best to try to, put this defense on his back, especially when Daquan Jones went down. Having Daquan Jones back is going to be nice because now they can focus. Opposing offenses have to focus a little bit more attention on both those guys. But Ed Oliver, I mean, he got the contract, and a lot of us were very skeptical about if they overpaid. And I know Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott love and have loved Ed Oliver since the draft process. So to me, if he plays the way he did last year consistently throughout the season, I think this is going to help the rest of the guys, especially the linebackers we spoke on earlier, the DBs, the corners, and the safeties. I think up front is where this team can win a lot of games, because there's going to be a lot of games that are going to be the trenches are going to determine the physicality. And I think that's what we saw a lot more of from Ed Oliver last year. It seemed like there was a lot more physicality to his game, as to previous years where we were always asking ourselves, why is Ed Oliver on the ground again? Like, why is he on the ground? Like, this was more pushing pockets. This was more pressuring the quarterback. This was more helping in the run. So I think that he needs to have a big season for this defense to be successful this year. What's your number 5?
I like that, by the way. Good assessment. My number 5 is Teron Johnson. Teron Johnson made that top 5. He's my number 5. He is. We spoke about, the linebacker position and the depth at the linebacker position. We spoke about the wide receivers and having the wide receivers that we have. If Teron Johnson goes down, I still don't know what we're going to do at that position.
Cam Lewis, I guess.
Nicole Bishop, can he play it? I have no idea. Right? He does not come off the football field. I believe he played 92% of the snaps last year. And he plays. There's an argument that the slot corner position can be just as important, if not more important, than the boundary corner position because of the way the NFL is being played today. He's covering tight ends. He's covering number 1 receivers now because offensive coordinators want to get their number 1 guy in mismatched situations. So he's covering tight ends and number 1 receivers and number 3 receivers and running backs and also filling the hole and playing that third linebacker position as well. So the amount of things that Teron Johnson does on defense is sensational. So I definitely have him in my top 5. He might need to be higher the way I'm talking about him, but he's the top 5. He's the all-pro player. He is so far the right now currently the highest paid slot corner in NFL history, and all of that is deservingly so the way and the amount of things he does for that Buffalo Bills defense.
I agree with you. He is on my list, and I will get to him. So that's you for number 4. Excellent assessment, though. I agree with everything you said, 100%.
Getting right to it. Number 4, Deion Dawkins. Deion Dawkins. He has to continue to be that guy. He has to continue to be that alpha male amongst the offensive line. He's the only offensive lineman I have in my top 10. I was tempted to have Conor McGovern in my top 10 just because of, not having Mitch Morse. I think this is the first time Josh Allen in his career not having Mitch Morse to be that center. And I think with the transition of going to guard to center, it could have been spoke about. But Deion Dawkins is that guy for me. He has to continue to protect Josh Allen blindside. He was on an interview, I believe, I forgot who it was the other day, and he said he felt that he is the best left tackle in the NFL, or definitely amongst one of the best left tackles in the NFL. And I tend to agree with him. I think he gets overlooked when we talk about best tackles in the NFL, but I think he deserves to be in that conversation, and he has to continue to get his name in those type of conversations by having another successful season. We spoke about Josh Allen being sacked only 24 times. Deion Dawkins got to continue to be one of the main beneficiaries of that. So Deion Dawkins is number 4 for me.
Let me ask you this. Excellent assessment, because Deion Dawkins was an honorable mention. He was actually in my 10 for a while, and then I replaced him with Spencer Brown just because, like you said, Deion Dawkins has been kind of automatic at left tackle, and I don't think that he gets enough credit that he deserves. I think that he's been the steady rock on that left side of that line for 7 years.
7 years.
And it's hard to believe that he's been there 7 years, starting as a rookie. And offensive linemen, they just don't get any love because there's nothing flashy about it. But if you go back and you look at what Deion Dawkins can do, he's he doesn't seem like he's anything stands out about him. He's kind of undersized. I feel like for a left tackle, he's never going to be in the conversation with the greats of all time. But if you look at everything he does, pass blocking, run blocking, you never see a time where there's an issue of anybody coming off that left side that affects what Josh does. I'm not saying it never happens, but more times than not, a lot of the success the Bills have running the ball is to the left side as well, and that's heavily based off of Deion Dawkins and what he's able to do as that anchor over there. So I agree with you 100%. I know that this is going to be his age 31 season. I think is he 30 now? It's hard to believe that he's already 30. I'm pretty sure he's 30 already. So I don't know if that's something that he's working towards his final contract.
He's 30. He's 30. He turned 30 in April.
Yeah, which is kind of weird to say, but that's something to just kind of keep an eye on. The Bills have a ton of flexibility in the depth chart at tackle, at guard. So, but I like it. I like him at 4. So 4 for me is Matt Milano. He was higher up, and then when I kind of redid my list earlier, it was like, all right, like you said, he's coming back from injury, but I want Matt Milano from All-Pro Matt Milano from a couple years ago, where he's breaking Mike White in half, where he's hitting everybody that has the ball. He's all over the field. I hope he's healthy, and I hope he comes back. And I think we have to have modest expectations to start. But I think he is a crucial part of what this team does because he's such an amazing linebacker to watch, not just the stuff he does tackling the ball carriers, but in coverage too. He's one of the best coverage linebackers in the NFL. And I feel like having a full season of a complement of him and Bernard would just go so far for this team. We miss them so much in the postseason with the likes of Travis Kelce and stuff like that. It didn't seem like it was the same defense when those guys aren't out there. And we need to have All-Pro Matt Milano out there to do what McDermott likes to do, stopping the run and covering those tight ends. And teams are, like you said, teams are beefing up with the 12 personnel now, and a lot of the teams in the AFC East are going to run that against the Bills. And we have 2 backers that are excellent in coverage, and we're going to need those guys 100%. So hopefully he's been practicing. There's been no restraints, it seems like, on what he's doing so far. So once training camp starts here pretty soon, hopefully we get to see him at 100%. All right. Number 3. Is that me for number 3? James Cook. I think we all like what we saw last year. I think we all agreed that he needs to stop dropping the football in crucial moments. But the touches were more than he had ever had in a single season going back to college. The touches, the carries, all of that. I think I want to see more consistent use of him the way that Joe Brady used him down the stretch. We all talk about the Dallas Cowboys game. I want him to be a more intricate part of the passing game because I think that's a lot of stuff that he was able to do. That touchdown against Kansas City where he ran that seam route and it was wide open. I want to see more of it. I think he's a huge part of what this Bills team wants to do. They want to run the ball. I know they got Ray Davis and they got Ty Johnson, and they're going to try to close teams out. But I want to see more of what we saw last year. The scrimmage yards. Everybody talks about Christian McCaffrey, Breece Hall. They talk about those guys, but I believe he was 6th in all-purpose yards last year. That can't be slept on. Like, he's a fantasy football dream come true if you guys are looking for a running back. And I think he's a huge part of what this team does. And I think that they're going to build a huge portion of their offense around the skill set of James Cook. And he's a guy entering his 3rd year. Is he a guy that's going to be here? Is he working towards another contract? Is this a guy that can maybe, change how the Bills look at running backs in the position by having another big year? What if he puts up 1,900 scrimmage yards this year? That's going to be huge for what the Bills do offensively and overall, in the AFC. So I just think Josh relies on him a lot. I know that the team relies on him a lot, and I can't wait to see what he puts together in year 3. And I think he's really important to what this team does overall, not just offensively.
I like it so much that I have James Cook at number 3 as well.
Get out of town. Get out of here. Get out. We finally got one right together.
He is my number 3. He's an important piece, very important piece to the puzzle. He's an important piece to what the Bills are trying to do in order to become successful. We talk about who's going to be wide receiver 1 and 2 and 3. What we do have to know is what we do have to rely on is what we do have at our skill positions. And what we do have is one of the better running backs, or we're going to find out, can he do it again? Similar to like what you said about Spencer Brown and Terrell Bernard. Can he have a repeat performance, compound, and ascend over that performance he had last year in James Cook, where he had over 1,500 yards from scrimmage, and he was a more of a focal point within the offense because of what Joe Brady's offense is implementing and how he schemed, devising, and calling plays. So because of those things, James Cook is definitely a focal point, and he is arguably the best player on offense, arguably not named Josh Allen.
I think you can go and say that he's the best player on offense besides Josh Allen. If you look at the numbers from scrimmage, now I know this year is going to be different because they're going to be spreading the wealth with how the offense is going to be run. But I think I want to see James Cook in pressure situations come through. I think that's what we want. We don't want dropsies. Wide open, running into the end zone. You got to make that catch. That's what we were all sold on. That coming out of Georgia, that's what he was, right? He was a guy that was going to make those plays. So, and he has made some of those plays. I mean, I'm not saying he hasn't, but he has. So, and when I was talking about James Cook, I was looking at you. I'm like, why is he looking at me like that? Like I just stole something from him. Oh wait, I did. I said. So, but no, I think I don't know. Let me ask you a question. How do you feel about this philosophy of draft, rinse, repeat with running backs with the Bills? Would you like the Bills to extend James Cook and bring him back if he has a good couple seasons here, year 3, year 4? Would you like the Bills to extend him, get him another contract, or does that depend on what we get from Ray Davis, or maybe they draft another guy next year? Like, what's your thoughts?
I have a philosophy with how I feel about the running back position. I feel that similar to the Bills, it's almost like a rinse and repeat kind of deal, unless I believe that this particular player at this position is special. If he is indeed special, then that however the Buffalo Bills exec and coaches define special at the position, if he's special, then I would entertain and look and want to re-sign him. If he is not that, then I would move on and go elsewhere. So the question is now, do we think, or do you think James Cook is special or have the abilities or capabilities to be a special player?
Let James cook. I think if you look at Christian McCaffrey, and now I'm not going to say that James Cook is Christian McCaffrey. I mean, very similar as far as how they were used in the offense last season. The Bills wanted to make it a point to pass the ball to James Cook, whether it was called that way or if Josh just recognized it and made the checkdowns or the screens or whatever. There was plays you could tell were designed in the passing game for James Cook. Like I said, the seam route against the Chiefs, that was a play that was James Cook. That was Josh's. It seemed like it was his first look, and it was his first read, and he made the play. I say Christian McCaffrey because I believe he was drafted in 2017, right? So he's 4 years older than James Cook, and he just got a massive deal. Now, I'm not saying that we should give James Cook $20 million a year. I'm not saying that. But do you think that if he produces this year say it's even the same as it was last year, where it's 1,600 scrimmage yards. He has, say, 7-8 touchdowns total from scrimmage via passing, rushing. And he does that again in 25. You're not going to re-sign him when you know it's already proven goods. You don't have to draft a guy. You don't have to sign somebody in free agency. Because by then, you got 2 more years of salary cap increases. So you have some more money, right? I'm just throwing it out there. Like, if you have a guy for 3 years who's performed really well and you know what you get, yes, he's going to be, 27, 28 at that point. Do you give him one last contract and then start to recycle the position? I mean, it's something that needs to be talked about. I mean,
no, I like it. I like the conversation. I like the conversation.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't think you just Devin Singletary's not James Cook, right? We knew what we were getting with Devin Singletary. He was going to hover around 1,000 yards. He didn't have breakaway speed, and that's no knock on Motor, because I think we all liked Motor. We thought that his locker room character was great, and he was a good asset to the team. But he's not James Cook. James Cook is different. James Cook has a high motor. James Cook has breakaway speed. James Cook has a lot of abilities that Motor Singletary didn't have. So I don't think we ever thought Singletary was going to get a second contract with the Bills. We didn't. But James Cook is different, and I think that's something that should be talked about, and that might be something that we maybe on another segment of another show we can talk about. But let me know, you guys, in the comments what you think about James Cook, if you guys are watching this now live or in the rewatch. If you want the Bills to try to bring back James Cook here in the future.
And that was an interesting comparison there. You brought up Christian McCaffrey. I'm not sure. Now, I love James Cook. I love what he can do. But is he on that level? I'm not sure he's on that level.
Okay, but who's more durable? James Cook hasn't been injured at all yet.
Right.
McCaffrey, that was the knock on when the Bills were rumored to be inquiring on McCaffrey before last year. Mm-hmm. Well, he's injury riddled. He's getting up there in age. The Bills don't value the running back position that way. McCaffrey didn't miss one game last year. Mm-hmm. As far as I don't think he missed one game last year. I think he played every game. Mm-hmm. So that whole he's injury prone right out the window, and then he got paid. He had more yards than anybody. I mean, more touches, all that stuff. So I'm not saying you turn James Cook into that. I'm just, and I'm not comparing James Cook to Christian McCaffrey.
No, I get it.
If you look at it from the lens of what can he add in the passing game that we already know we can get from the running game. Now we have an offensive coordinator who wants to run 12 personnel, who wants to have offensive linemen that have longer arms, Connor McGovern, that are going to push guys down the field. We have Osiris Torrance, who's a generational right guard. We have Spencer Brown, who played every game last year. We have Deion Dawkins. We have a really good offensive line. We should have a better run game. So, and they a 4th-round draft pick in Ray Davis. So I'm just saying, like, they're going to make it a point to make James Cook a focal part of this offense. And I don't think it's just going to be this year. So I don't know. That's just me. I think that it's worth talking about. It's worth.
It's definitely worth the price of admission. It's definitely, and I sense some, some disagreement amongst us when we talk about it. So it's definitely, it's definitely an interesting discussion.
Awesome. I love it. Mm-hmm. All right. So is that me for 2 or is that you for 2? That's me or that's you for 2.
Yeah, I believe it's me for 2. My number 2 is Von Miller. Von Miller, it's time, baby. It's time. It's time for him to, get the wheels back on the track and start rolling. He's a year removed. He's a season removed. Almost 2 years removed from this injury, and this is the year where players that have such a significant injury start to have some semblance of their old self. So this is a year where I'm expecting, and we should want to expect a big year from Von Miller. There is no Leonard Floyd out here that's going to give us that 9.5 or 10.5 sacks. Somebody's going to have to make up that margin. Who's going to pressure the quarterback? Who's going to be that guy to step up in crucial moments to make those plays? That is the reason why we signed a Von Miller. So when you look at who he is as a household name and what he's done in the past and what he's accomplished, and you look at his contract and you look at the ultimate reason why he came to Buffalo and what he was set out to do, this is the year where he has to prove that he is that guy that signed that lucrative contract in 2022, and we don't have the Micah Hydes and the Jordan Poyers and the veteran pieces to look to be a distraction off of Von Miller this year. This year, Von Miller has to be that guy, and it's going to be pivotal to the Buffalo Bills' overall team success in 2024.
I agree. I mean, we kind of touched on it earlier when we were talking about his interview with Sports Illustrated. He's 35. I get it. He had an ACL injury. I get it. His second one of his career. I get all that. But you want to throw away last year? Fine. Throw it away. Burn it. Like he said 2 years ago, burn it all. Whatever. The time for talking is over. Like it's not fair to say, well, we gave him the contract. What is fair is to say you need to play the money for the money that we gave you. And I understand you took a pay cut this year. Admirable job. But I don't want to hear about what he's doing working out. I don't want to hear about all that. I want to see it on the field. Because if we can get production from Von Miller, this defense can be extremely nasty when it comes to closing out games, when it comes to down the stretch, week 14, 15, 16, 17, into the postseason. Because we got to remember right now, this offense, I feel like, is going to start slow. I really feel like they're going to have to work through a lot of stuff. The offensive line, you got a new center. You got a new left guard. He's not new, but he's new at starting at the position. You got all different skill set position players besides Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid. You got guys that you're going to try to inject into the offense. You got Joe Brady, his first full offseason, like adding his playbook. So I feel like we have to cut some slack on the offense for the first few games, and that might mean that we have to play lights out on defense. Everything has to be clicking on defense, and that includes getting Von Miller to get to the damn quarterback. That's just what I want. I don't care if he plays 15 snaps, and it's just, hey, go be a sack merchant, go be an assassin, go get the quarterback. That's all we need you to do. We don't need you to stop the run. We don't need you to do anything else other than go pressure the quarterback and sack the quarterback. So I agree with you 100%. We need to have a big year from Vaughn. I don't know what we're going to get. That's the problem, is like we have these expectations, but should we not have expectations? Should we just say whatever we get is just a bonus? Like, because of what we saw last year, do we really think 35-year-old Vaughn's going to come out and play the way he wants? I don't know. That's the biggest question that I have. That's why I kept him off the list, because is it important for team success for Vaughn to be on the field and producing at a high level? Yes, but I don't know if we're going to get that. You know what I mean? I don't know what to expect from Von Miller. He looks great in practice. He's out there practicing barefoot in Texas in the 120-degree heat and all that stuff, and cool, but put it on the field. That's all I want. All right. So my number 2 is Taron Johnson. And
I can see it.
I was biting my tongue when you were talking about him, because you had a lot of great points. And
I can see it.
When he's not on the field, you can tell. You can tell when he's not on the field. And it's typically tight ends making big plays down the middle. It is a lot of stuff happening. He doesn't get the credit that he deserves. Like you said, he's the highest paid slot corner in the history of the NFL. And for him to play through how he started his career, had some concussion injuries, was really healthy last year. The Bills make him do a lot of things that doesn't show up always on stat sheets and things of that nature. And he's a crucial part of this defense. And McDermott makes it so that when he's on the field, those other 2 corners, the safeties and the linebackers, I feel like they have a little bit of a sense of, relief, because he's there because of what he does. He's all over the field. He's so agile, and he's just for an undersized guy to ask to play tight ends that are 6'3" and 6'4", and to do it and be successful at it. It just shows you, it just goes to the player that Taron Johnson is, and he deserved every penny that he's getting from that contract. And I'm glad that they were able to lock him up long-term. So, for me, number 2, I went back and forth with number 2 and number 3 with him, but like you said, and I don't want to steal any of the thunder that you said earlier, but he's just an intricate part of what they do on defense, and a lot of stuff runs through him. And him being in this defense now, he was drafted 18, right? 2018. He was part of the Josh Allen draft, right?
Yep,
So,
4th round pick, 2018.
So his tenure's up there, and we talk about we lost a lot of leaders in that locker room, right? We lost Micah Hyde, we lost Jordan Poyer, a lot of the boisterous guys in that defensive, backfield. Then I think this is the year where we see Taron Johnson possibly be a captain. He deserves it. He absolutely deserves it. And I think this is the year we hear his voice more in the huddles, and we see him more animated on the field, because he's now become a leader. He's now become the veteran in that, not just in the secondary, but on that defense. So it's going to be nice to see that the maturation of him from where he was to where he is now, and the respect that he is going to warrant in the locker room and in the meeting rooms and on the field by the opposing offenses. So, yeah, Taron Johnson, that's my number 2 guy.
I love it. Excellent.
All right, number 1, is that me? Do I go with number 1? Do I go, or is it you?
It's you. It's you.
Yes. We
It's
probably
us.
had this.
It's
we
us.
had the same one. It's Dalton Kincaid.
Dalton Kincaid.
Right.
Yep.
So the only thing I can say is that the expectations have gotten ridiculous, I feel. He had the 3rd most receptions all time by a rookie tight end last year. That's insane. People want to say he's more of a wide receiver than a tight end because he's not counted on a ton for his blocking ability, which I can counter that with saying watch the guy block on film, because he's gotten a lot better as the season progressed. But I feel like 120 to 125 targets is probably what he's going to get this year. And I feel like Joe Brady is going to have massive packages for him. And I feel like he might get some Diggs treatment. And I feel like he's athletic. I'm going to say he's elite. If you watch after week 9-10, when they made the swap at offensive coordinator, he became a focal point of the offense. And that was still with Stephon Diggs. That was still with Gabe Davis. So now just imagine not having those, I don't want to say distractions, but the target share, I think there was upward of 270 targets last year between Davis and Diggs. The targets are going to go, a lot of them are going to go to Kincaid. People talk about this target share between the wide receivers. I feel like you're going to game plan to get Dalton Kincaid involved a lot. And I think he's going to produce. I want him to get into the end zone more. That's the biggest thing that I think they need to, utilize him more in the red zone. But, he's a threat, and I think you need to use it. He's the best pass catcher you have on the team, as far as I'm concerned. So I don't want to take all of it, because I know you want to talk about it.
No, that's and that's perfectly fine. You said exactly and accurately what needed to be said about Dalton Kincaid. When we talk about special, and we don't, we might agree to disagree with James Cook. Is he special? Isn't he special? I think that's an argument. I think there's a less of an argument about that with Dalton Kincaid. I believe he is and has that it factor. He has that special ability, and we are all concerned about who's going to be wide receiver number 1 for the Buffalo Bills, where we have a guy like Dalton Kincaid, who's ultimately the guy I'm thinking who's going to be the wide receiver 1 for the Buffalo Bills. Maybe in that, Travis Kelce-esque role from last year, where he was the infecto receiver for the Kansas City Chiefs in that offense. I believe Dalton Kincaid is capable of doing the same thing. I think he's capable of leading the Buffalo Bills in receptions and yards. I think he's capable of catching 100 footballs this year. So him being that special talent, him being that 1st round pick, Buffalo Bills and Brandon Beane and that staff trying to trade up and get him, that's how important of a piece Brandon Beane felt he was. Well, this year, being that the Buffalo Bills do not have a Gabe Davis and do not have a Stephon Diggs, in year 2, the 1st round pick of Dalton Kincaid is being looked at as that guy who who needs to step up, and I think he is ready to take on that challenge. So Dalton Kincaid is definitely our number one pick for most impactful players for the Buffalo Bills in 2024.
Yeah, a couple things before we wrap this up and put a bow on it.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned he might get 100 receptions. He had 81 last year. He just needs one more a game, and that puts him at 98. So, I mean, I think that's a given. And number two, let me ask you this. Who's the number one wide receiver on the Chiefs the last 2 years? Who was their number one wide receiver? Wide receiver, not tight end. Wide receiver.
Was it MVS?
I don't know. Who? No,
But are you talking about Kelsey aside?
Yeah, I'm just saying. Like nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
Nobody cares.
I think it's MVS, but I don't think it's it don't exactly. Nobody cares to know who it was anyway.
You see where I'm saying? Like, I'm not comparing Kincaid to Kelsey.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that it didn't matter who their number one. And now I understand it's the Kansas City Chiefs. It's Patrick Mahomes. It's Andy Reid. They have an offensive-minded head coach. But nobody cared who the number one receiver was on the Chiefs the last 2 years, and they won the Super Bowl. Nobody cared because they had a guy that they could target when they wanted to, and he made plays. They targeted Travis Kelce when they wanted to, and he made plays. And that's what the Bills can do with Dalton Kincaid. That's why I don't understand why everybody's freaking out about not having this bona fide alpha number one wide receiver. I don't think if you scheme right and you play the right style of offense, you can make it work. Now, did they miss Tyreek Hill? Sure they did, because they had a guy who could take it to the house from anywhere on the field, but they also had a guy when it was third down, you could find him, and he was on the same page. And he was on the same page with Patrick Mahomes. So I'm pretty sure Josh and Kincaid are going to get that kind of rapport down to where they can. Josh is going to trust Kincaid to get open. He's going to know where he's at, and he's going to get him the ball. Now, would we like to see Keon Coleman emerge as the heir apparent to Stephon Diggs or Khalil Shakir and all these other guys? Sure. Would we like to have Curtis Samuel go off? Of course we would. But I think we already have the guy that's going to make plays when we need him to. So that's just my point. I don't think we need to stress so much about not having an alpha number one wide receiver when we have an elite tight end in Dalton Kincaid. Like, the guy is going to be special. That's all I'm going to say. He's going to be really special for this team. Oh, you're muted, Eric.
I was saying, I think that is, I think you're spot on with that assessment, and you're absolutely right. I do think, and getting right quick, my phone's starting to blow up. Right quick, just getting into the comment section right quick. Yeah, Rashee Rice last year, the year before, he was referring to the last 2 years. I just didn't mention Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice last year, MVS, I believe, was the leading receiver the year before. So correction, good catch, but correction. I just want to give that quick rebuttal.
Yeah, I think that if we look overall, and just to, again, we'll just put a bow on our lists.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was easy for us to agree on number one. You can see how we think differently about players, obviously 10 through number 2. We had basically almost the same people and the same players. It was just basically they were placed differently in numbers of importance for each of us. So, hey, Rich, you got anything else before we get out of here, man? I think it was a great show. It's always good dialogue. It is July. Okay, so there's going to be stuff that we're going to have to talk about just to kind of pass the time until we get into training camp. Anything else before we get out of here?
No, man. I think I think it was an excellent discussion, and we did differentiate our top 10 a lot more than I even expected. So it was an excellent show, and I appreciate everybody in the comment section that tuned in and held conversations amongst themselves at the same time. So it's always good to see the comment section have dialogue while we have dialogue. We currently have 1,033 people watching this right now. We appreciate everybody that tuned into the Founders Pod tonight. Borsu Bai and Monsters Energy Drink being our official partner. that there's a lot of things happening in Built in Buffalo right now. We appreciate everybody that's riding with us and continue to ride with us as we continue to try to bring the best and ultimate quality and content that our consumers can see. So appreciate everybody for tuning in tonight.
Yeah, if you guys are still watching, me and Akeem are going to start doing a mailbag type thing where we're going to have you guys ask some questions, and we'll pick 3 or 4, and we'll put them at the end of the show, so that way you guys can watch and see if we talk about your question. We'll go over stuff like that. So other than that, I got nothing else to talk about. Rich, it's Saturday night. It's 1,000 degrees where I'm at, so I'm going to go try to not be hot, and I'm going to go sit in the air and chill out. Again, thank you, everybody. I know I've been MIA from being on shows for a while, but I'm back, and me and Akeem will be back next Saturday. We got another great show for you, so we'll see you guys then. Other than that, go Bills, as always.
Go Bills.
Have a good night, everyone.